Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Saturn in Cancer or your Saturn in the 4th house. So my name is Brandon. I do astrology videos here on YouTube. This is part of a much longer series that I have been working towards, which is where I go through every single planet in every single house and sign within that order. So there's a playlist down below you can check out where I go through Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and in turn the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd house planets. And so feel free to check that out and check out that playlist. This is now the Cancer and 4th house planet series. So that's what I'm going to be going through here today. And today we're going to be doing Saturn in Cancer and Saturn in the 4th house. So if you are brand new to astrology, you don't know if you have Saturn in Cancer or Saturn in the 4th house, feel free to check down below. In the description box, there's going to be a little link that you can check out to generate your chart to decide and figure out if you have your Saturn in Cancer or your Saturn in the 4th house. In addition to that, down below you're going to see timestamps. If you have your Saturn in Cancer but not your Saturn in the 4th house, you're welcome to look through those things there and kind of skip to which part is referring to you. I will also be talking a little bit about what Saturn means within astrology, so you're entirely kind of well-versed on how Saturn plays out in the chart. And this is such a unique placement to kind of be going into, and it's very, very fun when it comes to doing this series. And this series has been consistently such a really big gift for me, and hopefully for all of you that are watching this as well, and especially those of you that have your Saturn in Cancer or Saturn in the 4th house and what that coincides with and the lessons that are kind of within that. In addition to that, if you have any other placements in Cancer, feel free to check out the playlist, or any placements in Gemini, 3rd house, things like that. Check out the playlist and you can kind of watch all those things there. But I'm really excited for this video here today. So without further ado, let's get started. And let's go right into just what Saturn means in astrology. Okay, so Saturn in astrology has its very specific sort of lesson around it. And that lesson typically is not really shown to us until that Saturn return around the age of 28 to 30 or 32. And with Saturn, it has a lot to do with restrictions, with karma, but karma in the sense of the physicality, the physical karma, the structural things you need to learn. It has to do with that delay of gratification and that long-term kind of consistent work that you do in the area that Saturn's related to. And over time, you eventually build like an empire as it relates to that Saturn's placement within the chart. And so it's important to know to be patient with yourself and to allow yourself to understand delays when it comes to Saturn. Saturn naturally rules both Capricorn and Aquarius, and in turn, its opposites are going to have what's be considered detriment. So that's going to be Saturn in Cancer and Saturn in Leo. And then Saturn is considered to be exalted, otherwise like kind of functioning at its highest capacity in Libra. And then in the opposition to that in Aries, it's going to be considered to be in fall. And so obviously, as you can tell, Saturn in Cancer is going to be one of those that's going to fall on one of those major dignity spectrums, if you will. So there's going to be a lot of things we're going to be talking about in that regard there. And Saturn, outside of structures and boundaries and responsibility and maturity, it really does also rule our elders and our ability to maintain history or to restabilize or to rebuild and build it stronger and build a strong foundation in a lot of ways. And so when we see Saturn specifically in the bottom of the chart, which we'll get to in the 4th house segment, versus the top of the chart, there's structural things going on in a different area than it would be in the top of the chart, which the top of the chart is much more public, the bottom of the chart is much more private for the most part. But Saturn will bring a lot of hard work to that area up until the age of 30, and it is quite a difficulty to kind of work through and deal with up until that age. And I did also do a podcast specific to Saturn in Saturn cycles and things like that. So feel free to check that out. I want to put that down in the description box below as well. So feel free to check those things out there. Now, like I said, Saturn definitely has a lot to do with delays and responsibilities and really allowing things to take their time and build in the right procedure and the right patience, and to be patient. And so depending upon Saturn's aspects as well as what Saturn rules in the chart, it's important to see how that native is going to kind of be, asked to restructure and asked to build and asked to stabilize and work out things in that regard. So very, very powerful placement, very important in the long-term karmic lesson in the chart. And in this series, I'm only really speaking about up to Saturn. I don't really speak on anything Uranian, Neptunian, or Plutonic, which I will probably do that later videos and things like that after this whole series is well over being finished. But it is something that there are more layers to astrology outside of Saturn that need to be referenced as well. But with all that aside, let's get started and let's specifically just talk about what Saturn means in Cancer. Okay, so we have Saturn in Cancer. Now, Saturn in Cancer has its own, like I said earlier, its own dignity that kind of works within that. So Saturn naturally rules Capricorn, which is the opposite sign of Cancer. And so when Saturn is placed in, the sign opposite of what it rules, it's considered to be in detriment. It's considered to be more difficult to work with, more difficult to kind of establish and really, really solidify in a lot of ways. And Saturn may struggle because it's required to work in a realm that it is not necessarily comfortable with, that it's in opposition with. Now, with that, a lot of people speak about Saturn in Cancer and Saturn in Leo, about a lot of difficulty, about a lot of just negative things. A lot of people speak on this Saturn in Cancer as being so negative because of the fact that it's in detriment. And the thing about a detrimented planet, it's going to, yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's not going to necessarily do all of the things perfectly related to that planet because it's uncomfortable, right? However, because it is being put, and especially in detriment, because in detriment, it's being put in the opposite sign that it rules. So it's forced to bring energy and focus around that axis a lot and really, really bring that in a way that is almost overly focused and overly accentuated, where it will make that axis even stronger, right? Saturn in Capricorn is going to just be Saturn in Capricorn. It's going to be very Saturnian. It's going to make those lessons really, really strong. However, when it's now Saturn in Cancer, you're going to see it being pulled into the opposition of itself, which is then going to make Saturn almost work even harder in a way to bring itself back to that Capricornian structure that Saturn really wants. So the reason why Saturn and the moon don't really get along is because we think of the moon is our fastest moving body, and from an astrological perspective that we are working with. It always it goes ups and downs, and it waxes and wanes. It becomes full, it becomes new. It has all these different things that it kind of works with. And it always changes, right? Our moods always change, our lives always changing, and that is related to the moon sign and that Cancer archetype. If you've been watching any of these videos on the Cancer series here, you've realized that there is a lot of focus upon the ups and downs of life. Saturn is very oppositional to that. Saturn is literally not having these ups and downs and having stability and having this very solid kind of structure that doesn't move, that doesn't taper, that doesn't change. And with Saturn in Cancer, it does change. It has to abide by the tides. It has to abide by the moon, and it has to understand its feelings and understand how to really solidify and really create that truly powerful internal world that comes with Cancer, right? When we were talking about all those other videos in Cancer, a lot of the thing that kept coming up this week was relative to specifically feeling one's feelings, allowing yourself to feel your feelings, and understand that there's value within that, and that there's an ability to feel into yourself and know that there's structure to be had internally, that if you build that, you're fine in the long run. Like, you need to build your internal world. You need to feel your feelings. You need to understand that inner kind of makeup and that heritage and that ancestry and your family lineage and all of that, because that is your biggest gift to your responsibility. If any Cancer placement's gonna understand the importance of dealing with their feelings to have a successful career, it's the Saturn in Cancer, because of the natural emotional kind of difficulty and neglect and the stuff that they've had to deal with, that they don't want to have affect their career. They don't want it to be a part of their career. Now, is their career going to be emotional? Is their career going to be caretaking? Is their career going to have things related to cancer? Absolutely. It's going to have things related to, sensitivities and things. Granted, we can see it going a range of different ways depending upon where Saturn sits in the chart in Cancer. But overall, you're going to see some sense of emotional responsibility and some sense of emotional sensitivity that comes with age, because of the fact that most Saturn in Cancers had a quite difficult emotional upbringing and ability to emotionally feel into themselves, allow themselves to, really feel that safety, feel that security, and have that emotional kind of foundation to stand on. They never were able to have that. It was taken from them. It was something they weren't really able to work with. And what's very interesting is, as I've been doing these series, there's been, I do them typically out of libraries, right? And the thing that's very interesting is Spirit always has little jokes about it when I end up getting books. So I end up getting books to prop up my phone at this current moment because I don't have I don't have one of those fancy stands right now. I need one, but for the purpose of this video and for the purpose of my point, it makes sense for me to not have them, because every time I go and do these readings or these videos here, I have to get books to prop them up on. And the one that I bought, I'm not going to grab it right here, but I'm gonna take a picture of it and put it on the screen now. It's literally The Orphan Mother, which, if you know Saturn in Cancer and if you know anything about astrology, you can understand that is a lot about what the Saturn Cancer archetype is about. It's about feeling orphaned, feeling alone, but also in that same vein, needing to caretake for their family, needing to be, like I said, the orphan mother, the one that is, neglected, that doesn't have a family, but is forced to know how to understand and be a family for someone and curate a family and almost have a career around family and bonding and that kind of chosen family thing. There's a lot of chosen family that comes from Saturn in Cancer as they've grown up and they've realized that it's a very cruel world, and they definitely had a difficult upbringing, and their family was very responsible and very hard on them to understand what they need to do, and they didn't have that space to feel their feelings and feel that security. So a lot of the time, Saturn in Cancers are going to deal with a family that they have to work for, that they have to parent. They have to parent their parents. And in that same vein, they don't have the emotional understanding, the emotional intelligence until that age of 28 or 30 to understand why they had to go through all that neglect, all that difficulty, all that emotional stuff. But then as they age, they're able to kind of synthesize and recalibrate their own emotional system to understand that there's value in being able to be a caretaker for someone. There's so much value in being able to parent somebody and in turn parent yourself. Being able to reparent yourself is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself as a Saturn in Cancer, and it's going to be difficult. You're going to almost be forced into that and forced into providing yourself that emotional nourishment, providing yourself that emotional regulation, because that's what the moon needs. The moon and Cancer placements require us to understand our emotional needs and what we want to really feel, and those ups and downs, and how it always changes and how it always moves. And so Saturn in Cancer really requires us to do that, because that is how we are going to do the best work we're here to do, is by feeling our feelings, allowing ourselves to sit into that and really, really, really expose all of our sensitivities to ourselves in a way that we're able to be responsible and hold ourselves accountable for the emotionality that we are bringing or not bringing to a situation, and in turn also being able to bring emotionality to a professional situation when it's needed, and to not bring emotionality when it's not needed, and knowing that distinct difference of when it's relevant and when it's not. And I think that's where the moon really comes into play with this, where Saturn in Cancer can do so much in the world, because they are so connected to the public as well, because the moon rules the public, it rules society, it rules all of just the people. It rules the people, and that's why on full moons you'll see a lot more activity. New moons you'll see more activity, and there'll be a lot more bursts and stuff. Like, it's statistically proven that there's more crime during full moons, And so it's because we as a public are innately connected to that lunar quality. And with Saturn in Cancer, there's a responsibility there. So there's almost a public responsibility with Saturn in Cancer, as well as a just natural connection to maybe reining in people's emotions and understanding people's emotions, and reining in the public and getting public attention in a way that is more sensitive, which is what Saturn doesn't necessarily like. It doesn't like to have so much sensitivity. It loves to be very rigid and authoritative and things, but there's an authoritative sense that is brought into this that is flavored with Cancer, which is going to be this sensitivity, this emotionality, this ability to feel one's feelings and to go into someone else and guide them through that. Saturn in Cancer make great therapists because they had to go to therapy. I know that sounds really weird to say that, but it's very true. They become those people that are really wanting to learn what their feelings are, why they're feeling the way they are, why they've been through what they've been through, and it's something that allows Saturn in Cancer to truly be the authority that they need to be from that emotional space and living from that emotional space. And when you have that authority from your inner kind of space, your inner world, right? When you have that internal compass of responsibility and understanding and knowing what you need to do, and knowing that it comes from you, and that you're the one that's built that inner world and no one can take that is a gift, and that is strength, and that is power, and that is something that Saturn in Cancer needs to understand. Is there's power in what you've given people in your emotionality, and there's power in your emotional strength and your resilience and what you've had to deal with, because Saturn in Cancer, y'all have dealt with a lot of emotional projections and emotional dysregulation, and maybe people seeing you emotionally dysregulated and judging you because, that's too messy, it's not organized, it's too all over the place, right? That's what Saturn in Cancer is going to hear a lot of the time, especially if Saturn in Cancer is public in the 10th house or even on the ascendant. It becomes this thing that people are just like, no, you're messy, you have emotion, you're letting your emotions affect your work. And this is where we see that Saturn Moon divide, that Capricorn Cancer divide of don't bring your work home with you, right? And don't let your work, your home life affect your work life. There's a very strict divide that we speak on in our society, and this also applies to Saturn in the 4th house too. But it's something that I think is kind of forced upon a Saturn in Cancer to understand that divide and understand that there is certain circumstances it is okay to bring those places together, depending upon what area of work that you're working in, where you are, what you're doing, what your job is, and what your home life is. Like, for example, what you're bringing from your work to your work to your house, or from your house to your work, right? Obviously, Saturn in Cancer, Saturn in 4th house, we're going to see working from home really prominently. People that are willing to work in private and in their home is just really, really, really prominent for this. But it's because they need that safety, right? And they need that ability to be able to nourish their feelings, understand their feelings as they go through and create their jobs and their careers and things like that. And so really beautiful, really powerful. But it's something that there is a gift, and it's hard to delineate because so many people speak on the don't bring your work home with you, and don't let your home life, don't bring your private stuff into work, don't let it affect you, right? That is very what a lot of society speaks, and a lot of society perpetuates such idea. So to delineate what it is that we need to do as a Saturn in Cancer is really to feel into those feelings, understand that they're okay to incorporate into your career, and you will learn that is how you find the most enriching career and job and gifts to give people, because you have taken the time to feel your feelings and really dig into yourself and know what your worth is on an internal level, through having to regulate yourself, having to deal with triggers and emotionality of not feeling stable in your home and in turn in your internal world. Because the Cancer part of the chart, the 4th house, is so internal, it's so private, it's so personal, that it's so rooted with, it's literally the roots of our chart. And when Saturn's there, it's going to really kind of slow down the ability to put those roots down and to feel secure in your rootedness, in your ability to kind of ground into you. And that is such a gift when you learn to do that. but you need to be able to know what you're grounding into and understand that emotions are not going to hurt you. Emotions are valuable. They're there for you. They're there for you can't run from your emotions. They are there for your entire life. You need to be able to feel your feelings and allow yourself to feel your feelings, because that's where your responsibility is going to come from. That's where your gift is at. And that is where you are going to inevitably be using your gift to help people, help society, and have a long-term place in the world. You're going to create the homes for people internally, in your personal relationships, professional relationships, in your career especially. You're going to create that sense of community, home. The maternal instinct, the caretaking is a lot what we see with Saturn in Cancer, and I love it. I love my Saturn in Cancer individuals. They have such a unique gift and a unique sensitivity to them, and I want them to be so much easier on themselves emotionally, because there is this really hardness that they have on themselves, and imposter syndrome in a lot of ways. But it's about being able to be patient with their feelings and patient with that process as it comes up, so that they can allow themselves to truly feel what it is that their emotions are trying to tell them, and see how that's guiding them to build a new life for them, build a more stable life for themselves or others, and in turn for their career and for the lives of many. So it's really important to know that your feelings are your biggest asset, your biggest gift, and you need to learn how to ground into them and understand that is your structural base. That is where you're going to restructure yourself. Right? And of course, like I said with all the other Cancer videos, look to your moon sign, and that will tell you specifically how this Saturn in Cancer is also playing into, and the kind of other layers of that. Feel free to watch your moon sign video if that moon sign video is out as of yet. Also, of course, subscribe to the playlist, or my channel, of course, here. If you like this video, comment, subscribe, all those things. Because in that playlist, I'll be going through all of those videos and in all of those seasons as well. So I would recommend looking at your moon sign for more context. And if video hasn't come out, just wait for that. And of course, if you're interested in any readings with me, my website's down below, as well as anything with booking with me or my courses and stuff. So feel free to check that out. But I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching this, my Saturn in Cancers. And I will see you guys in the next part where we talk about Saturn in the 4th house. Okay, so we have Saturn in the 4th house. This is going to have a little bit more of a larger responsibility to it when it comes to the family, right? So when we see Saturn in Cancer, we see this gift of emotionality, emotional responsibility. Saturn in the 4th house still has that, but it's a lot more focused upon the family in specific and their emotional inability to manage themselves, and the emotional responsibility that comes with having a family, and as you age, the inevitable kind of emotional growth that comes. And the thing I talk about, I didn't say this in the Saturn Cancer portion, I probably should have, but I really speak on with this with Saturn Cancer, Saturn Leo. It's like this premise of kind of like a beating heart when it's allowing itself to feel more of its feelings. That's what I tend to see with Saturn in Cancer, Saturn in the 4th house. So there is a lot there. Now, Saturn in the 4th house, it does have this, once again, responsibility, working from home kind of vibe to it. And depending upon Saturn's placement, of course, you're going to want to see what how Saturn's placed, what you're going to be held responsible for, or what your family is going to want to do. But overall, there's an overarching theme of moving out, finding your home base, finding where you want to put your roots down in a more physical sense than it is with Saturn in Cancer. Saturn in Cancer is much more emotional, internal, that sort of process. But Saturn in the 4th house has a much more of a, like, rootedness in its own place in the world, quite literally. And so if we see Saturn in Pisces in the 4th or Saturn in Sag in the 4th, you're going to see this as someone who really wants to move out of the country or be in a different culture and have that kind of exposure, and has always had this dream or this belief. And sometimes Saturn in Sag can go and study in a different country, and Saturn in Pisces may always want to do that as well. Saturn in Pisces in the 4th is very much foreign settlement. I can also see a lot of real estate things with Saturn in the 4th as well, real estate jobs and careers. Any career that's related to the earth and ground and agriculture, architecture, obviously home-based businesses, restaurants, farming, anything that is 4th house. With Saturn there definitely speaks to that ability. Mining as well, if we had Saturn in like Taurus. Saturn in Virgo would be Saturn in Virgo in the 4th is very much like for some reason, like a family medicine doctor. There's a lot of that. I could see that doing really well for a Saturn Virgo in the 4th house. there's a lot of different ways that Saturn can play it out, but overall there is this business quality, this responsibility in a physical, tangible, and emotional and rooted ancestry sense that is required of Saturn in the fourth house, of teaching them how to ground into their feelings, how to be responsible for what they go home to. That's a lot of what it is. And knowing where those boundaries lie in that internal world, both within themselves, but more importantly, within their home life, within their family dynamic, within those interpersonal, intimate kind of conversations and reactions and relationships. There's going to be this very difficult time up until the age of 30 of the Saturn and Cancer individual to know how to feel their feelings and really ground into that. And so as the Saturn fourth house Saturn Cancer individual learns that, they're going to really find out what their home is. And it's really about home for Saturn fourth house people is kind of always unstable, but they always want it to be stable. They're always working on that internal stability and that home life stability. So that emotional control is definitely a part of this. And that kind of internal world is very important for them to work on and care for and really build a foundational kind of structure around, right? Being able to feel into what it is that they are required to do here and be able to make a career out of it, right? If we see Saturn in more of a fiery sign, I already kind of went through Sag, because that's more of like, I want to go study, I want to find a different culture, I want to move away from my home country. That's kind of what I see there. But Saturn in Leo and Saturn in Aries, Saturn in fire in general has a little bit more of a difficulty, because Saturn in fire is all about this impulsivity, this ability to go after what you want, this desire to live your truth and inspire others. And so whenever Saturn's in fire, it's going to kind of delay that inspiration, delay that gift, delay that kind of spark that Saturn in fire wants to have, and that leadership and that confidence. So there's a lot of delay of confidence up until the age of 30 or so. But then as we reach that Saturn return, Saturn in the fourth house in fire really knows what they want to do and how they want to kind of keep their, move their family forward, or sustain their family, or innovate their family, teach their family what beliefs they got from their family with Saturn and Sag. But once again, Saturn and Leo in the fourth it's more of like this is more of a who am I in the family, what's my role in the family. That's kind of what you'll see throughout a lot of Saturn and fire in the fourth house. Saturn Aries definitely has that as well, but Saturn Leo is more of like identification, disidentification with the family, and how to not allow the family's dynamics to really affect the individual and affect how they show up in the world. And that's kind of just in general Saturn in the fourth house too, but Saturn and Leo in the fourth I feel like has that a lot more prominently, because they don't want to show they don't want to have shame for their family, but they keep being brought back to that responsibility of the family, and a lot of identification and in turn disidentification with the family over time of that is not me, I'm not going to let that be me. And once again, back to what I said in every other fourth house video I've done here, fourth house planets definitely have a karmic breaker to the family's karma and that ancestral line. That's a lot of what we see with fourth house planets. Saturn in the fourth is definitely no different than that. It's probably one of the bigger ones on that karmic line there, especially if Saturn's in Scorpio or the moon is in Scorpio. So stuff like that is definitely going to kind of layer to what I would consider like a revalidation of this kind of emotional stuff, meaning like kind of it's showing up in multiple places in the chart, is what I'm referring to. So Saturn in the fourth in like Aries, like I said, this is going to be a leadership. This is going to definitely be like head of household energy, where they will eventually be head of household. Kind of all of these fiery ones are going to have that, of how they allow their family heritage, or how they want to pioneer their family, how they allow their family heritage to really affect them with that, and how they want to move forward with the next generation of their family, how they want to move their family forward, without getting rid of that tradition and that kind of foundation that the family built prior to that. So there's a lot of gifts there. Now, Saturn in Earth. So I already kind of talked a little bit about Virgo. This is very much like internal medicine doctor or family medicine doctor, but just also someone who really needs to, Saturn in the fourth overall is going to need to really feel their feelings and sit in their stuff as well, just like Saturn in Cancer, but in a very unique way. Saturn in Virgo is really about more of that teasing out of what the family did to them, and kind of be able to make sense of the family dynamic and explain that to people, explain it to themselves, and delineate their role. And that's a lot, like I said, with Saturn in the 4th, you're going to see that. There's a lot of delineation of roles, of where you fit in the family, where you don't. But Saturn in Virgo in the 4th, this, like I said, outside of the like doctor part of it and all of that, it's something where it's really about really maintaining that routine at home as well, maintaining that control at home, knowing what you need to do, working from home as well. With all those Earth Saturns in the 4th are going to definitely have that, but this is more of the responsibility around one's own limits of what they can accomplish in a day and what they're putting on themselves. So Saturn Virgo definitely need to be more easy on themselves and what they can accomplish for their family, because they might be really smart and be able to see their family in a way that is like, they need to improve this and this and this, and there's this almost nitpicky quality of it that is given to them by their family, but there's a gift in that over time. And we'll get to that when I get to Saturn and Virgo, which is a whole nother couple months from now, but I'm really excited to do that week as well, for many reasons. So definitely check out that video when that does come out as well, because there's a lot of context there. Because Saturn Virgo really needs to be able to feel into what their family is here to do, and what their role is and how they can work within their family. And it's a lot of that, but it's a lot of perfecting their own health and making sure, once again, that they are having that routine on lock. Kind of similar to Saturn and Aries, but Saturn and Aries has it differently. But Saturn and Virgo is really taking care of the family, as you'll see a lot of caretaking stuff with 4th house Saturn. Saturn and Taurus, there's a lot of money making there. This is where I would see people that do agriculture after their Saturn return, jewelry. I talked about Saturn and Taurus before, so check out that video if you're interested in that. But Saturn in the 4th house with Taurus has like a very structural financial building. This is where you'll see a lot more investing, like real estate investing and international investing, family land, and kind of the building of one's family land is a lot of what you'll see, especially with Saturn's also in Capricorn too. That's a really well placed Saturn. So there is going to be this like family responsibility career that you're going to kind of take the family's business. That's what you'll see a lot with at the Saturn return, something to that effect, taking the family's business or switching that role of your responsibility being given to you, with Saturn in the 4th house in general. And then Saturn in Air is really interesting. Saturn in Gemini in the 4th. This is going to be like the one who really is trying to make, like similar to Saturn and Virgo, trying to make sense of their family, make sense of what's going on, make sense of like, what they're here to do, their siblings, their kind of the conversations around that, around their family. Being able to be the scribe for their family is a really big part of this. Being able to find the right words for their family. This is another family therapist one. All the Saturn Air ones in the 4th house are going to have like a family therapist or marriage family therapist or a counselor vibe to them. Saturn in the 4th generally has that just because it's Saturn in the 4th, and it's had to deal with a lot of family internal conflict. So yeah, that's a really, really interesting one in a lot of ways, with Saturn in the 4th house in Air, because all of them kind of have this relational quality that's really intimate and private. And so Saturn in Libra in the 4th, they're gonna have this is where you'll definitely see more of that kind of business transfership from, I don't want to say transfership, but business transfer, or like transfer of ownership at the Saturn return. You're definitely going to see that with a Saturn in Libra, but there is going to be this quality of internal beauty around that, and trying to figure out what they really want, how they want to be, who they want to be with. There's a lot of marriage prospects and things of that nature that you're going to see, and the focus upon who you're bringing into your environment and how the boundaries around who you allow into those spaces. Saturn in Aquarius in the 4th, there's going to be more of a focus upon, more of a focus specifically upon the community that they bring. Obviously, there's going to be definitely like I talked about this a little bit with, I believe it was Mercury in Aquarius in the 4th house, but this is more of a like public advocate, because they had to struggle being able to utilize resources to build their own foundation, and then from there because they had to build their own foundation, be able to advocate for other people. That's a lot of what I would see with Saturn Aquarius in the fourth, is being able to ground into their own home, their own world, and then be able to give that to others and use themselves as a public servant or a public kind of advocate for housing and immigrants and anyone that needs to be grounded and rooted into something, and citizenship. There's going to be some stuff there too. Another thing, Saturn in the fourth house can definitely have some citizenship hangups or delays in citizenship. Definitely something there. So look into that as well. A Saturn return typically brings those things up as well, kind of citizenship, transference as well. Now, Saturn in water in the fourth house, Saturn in Cancer in the fourth, this is going to be a heavy one. This is going to be really, really deep in that emotionality, the emotional kind of framework. Saturn in Scorpio in the fourth, and then Saturn in Pisces in the fourth. These are going to be a little bit more different. Saturn in Scorpio is definitely going to have a lot more family karma to deal with, a lot deeper than the average Saturn in the fourth, because they're meant to kind of trust and learn how to trust their family and learn how to trust people intimately. So there's going to be a lot of restructuring of that. They might have been in a very wealthy family that they felt abused by, and need to then learn how to restructure themselves in a much deeper way, but in a more authoritative way, and have careers aligning with very powerful people. There's a lot of interesting stuff with real estate and investments with Saturn and Capricorn or Saturn and Scorpio in the fourth. Saturn and Pisces in the fourth definitely has more of a this has more of a kind of lost wanderer soul kind of thing. I spoke about this in the very beginning with Saturn and Pisces, but there is this kind of like longing for something that they might not know is there, or that they can ground into. So there's almost like a spiritual responsibility as well with the fourth house. The fourth house planet Saturn can also, all of them can have a career with mediumship and connecting with ancestors and help people through very sensitive things. You see a lot of nurses with Cancer placements, a lot of mediums, a lot of death doulas, a lot of tarot card readers, astrologers that have fourth house stuff that can connect people's ancestors and that ancestral line, and that lineage for fourth house people is pretty deep. And so Saturn in the fourth, there's a lot of career within going through your elders and learning about that as well. And so look into your elders as a Saturn fourth houser, what those elders can teach you, what you can learn from them, what you can teach them, what you can sustain for them, and what careers they had that you can then also in turn potentially use as well. So there's a lot of gifts here for the Saturn in the fourth house individuals. It's about how you utilize them, how you ground into your reality and really sit into your feelings and see your responsibility for the world. Essentially, when something's in the fourth house, it's this responsibility for the world and for that kind of groundedness, right? And so being able to ground into your specific root and your specific lineage and line, and being able to work within that to be responsible and help others that are within that same genetic line, or just that you choose are your family as well. There's a lot of stuff there. And so Saturn in the fourth definitely has a deep responsibility to things that we don't typically talk about or we don't typically see, but your inner world is so rich, and your ability to build that is even more important. And your gift is your ability to sit in those things and understand the importance of family and of your own family, and whatever you choose that to be, and whatever you connect, whoever you connect that with to you. And so there's a massive gift there. So Saturn and Cancer, definitely lean into your responsibility. And during your Saturn return, trust me, it will definitely get better. In that as well, there is going to be in the description box, obviously, my links to my website, my courses, stuff like that. So feel free to check that out if you're interested in those things. And then in addition to that, I'm going to put down in the description box, because this is a Saturn video, I'm going to put in the description box the podcast that I had done a little while back on Saturn within astrology, and kind of how the kind of cycles work in that way. So feel free to check that out if you're interested in those things. If you want to book with me, obviously that's down there too. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. You know what I'm asking. You get it. But and this video is here for all the Saturn Cancers and Saturn fourth housers. If you have anything after this in Leo or fifth house, or anything after that, of course, the playlist is down below for you to check out. So feel free to do that. And I just appreciate you for being here. All you Saturn Cancers and Saturn fourth housers are absolutely amazing. Lean into your responsibility, feel your feelings, and allow that to come over time, and understand that success is not an overnight thing, and there will be days that it will change, it will go up and down, and your feelings are your biggest compass as you learn to listen to them and work within them. So much love to both of you, all of you. I say both, Cancer and Saturn in 4th house. You guys are amazing. Feel free to comment down below what your experience has been like with this placement. I love you so much. Thank you. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.